Hello and welcome to the latest episode of What Did I Miss? Today I'm joined by a coworker, and I love saying that because technically we're coworkers, but we don't actually ever get to see each other at any point. But it's from the No Dunks podcast. Trey Kirby joining me today. Trey, I want to thank you for the time right off the bat. Isn't it weird that we're technically coworkers, but none of us really know each other?
Yeah, that is really weird. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, I guess we know each other just internet-wise, you know? We're just in the same Zooms and the various different streaming services. Maybe someday we'll actually see flesh to flesh, face to face. We shall see.
Like the days of water cooler, like we don't have water coolers in this new weird world of ours. It's kind of sad. There's no I want office gossip. I want to know who's dating who. We got nothing.
I got no gossip for you. All we got is the Twitter water cooler at this point. Not quite the same, you know? People are always angry at that water cooler for some reason.
That's the angriest water cooler in the history of the world. But that's kind of the point. So we don't really know each other. I know what I know of you via social media, which, I mean, according to the world means I know you completely and totally and we're best friends. But just in case that theory does not hold up, I figured this would be a good time to get to know each other a little bit better, or at least me, you. So first off, Bulls fan, how are you feeling this season so far?
Well, I wish you would have had me on before the 5-game losing streak when the Bulls are playing their worst of the season. But in general, I'm feeling pretty good. I tried to tell everybody last year that the Bulls were back. They had a nice first half of the season. They made a trade for Nikola Vucevic. It looked like they were on the up and up. And then things fell off basically after the trade deadline, after the All-Star break. But this year, they came in, they looked great after signing DeRozan, after trading for Lonzo Ball, after signing for Alex Caruso. Unfortunately, Ball and Caruso have been hurt for a huge chunk of this season recently, so the Bulls' defense has fallen off. They ain't looking good, but as long as they're healthy for the playoffs, I'm excited to at least hopefully be able to go back home, see a playoff game in the United Center for the first time in ages.
So I'm glad I have you on here as a Bulls fan because I don't get to talk to a lot of Bulls fans anymore. It's very weird how the world has changed for the worst. And that being said, when the offseason happened and all of the trades happened and the Lakers did what they did and it seemed like it just monopolized the airways, which it always does. But I do specifically remember hearing people talking about the Chicago Bulls and what they did. And no one seemed to be overly impressed by it. And I remember thinking at the time by myself, this seems like this is going to be a really good thing for the Bulls. When they did everything they did, were you like, why is everyone talking about the Lakers? We legitimately just did something great.
Yeah, a little bit. I thought it was, as a Spurs fan, you watched DeMar DeRozan. You saw how his game grew after the Kawhi Leonard trade. I lived in Toronto for a couple of years, so I watched a lot of DeRozan back in the day, and then doing the podcast, had to keep up with the Spurs as well. So I don't think that everybody had their eyes on DeMar DeRozan for the past few seasons when he's been in San Antonio. And maybe the reputation for DeRozan was kind of set in stone with the way things ended in Toronto, where it was like, him and Kyle Lowry went head-to-head with LeBron season after season after season and just kept coming up short. But as it turned out, when he came to the Bulls, he didn't necessarily have to be the number one guy, though he was. He just had to be the number one guy for them. Maybe a 1.5 alongside with Zach LaVine, but it started popping. That being said, I didn't expect the Bulls' defense to be as good as it was in the first half of the season. Having Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso as guards, they're just getting after it at the point of attack, forcing a bunch of turnovers and then being able to turn that defense into offense, get a lot of baskets that way. With Vucevic as the main guy, you got to have some solid defenders on the perimeter. That's why they've fallen off in the meantime. But to see them click right away, I thought was pretty impressive. I remember during the preseason, they were winning a bunch of preseason games by 40 points, scoring a ton of points. And everyone's like, oh, the preseason doesn't mean nothing. Doesn't mean anything. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't mean anything unless it's the Bulls, in which case it means a whole lot. And it did for a little.
It has to be something
sometimes. It still can. Yeah, sometimes it means something a little bit.
You're like, we broke up with DeMar DeRozan and then he got way hotter. And that's exactly what's happening right now. You guys got the hot version, the hot version of DeMar DeRozan. And we're just like, well, it didn't work here. On a scale of 1 to 10, Grayson Allen, punchable or super punchable?
I'll go with 10 on super punchable. I think that the thing that was super impressive to me, the Bulls just played the Bucks for the first time after the Grayson Allen, Alex Caruso incident. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, they've brought in Tristan Thompson off the waiver wire in the buyout market. So he wasn't even a Bull when the Alex Caruso, Grayson Allen first incident happened. But he's the guy who's like, we're not letting that happen again. That ain't happening here. So he was fired up. I love to see that. A new veteran to the team who is instantly the guy who wants to go out there and just smash bodies. It turned out being Derrick Jones Jr. who flagrant fouled him in the game. So, I think the Bulls and the Bucks are even for this one. But the Bulls probably still owe the Bucks one for Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Mike Dunleavy back in 2015. I'll never forget
you're
that
holding
one,
on to
Giannis.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Giannis's first playoff appearance, he got super mad at Mike Dunleavy. That was like one of the Bulls' most recent playoff moments. That was a long time ago. So revenge is coming.
I get it. I hold on to things for decades.
Yeah.
I love that Tristan Thompson, he's like the professional journeyman. Like he knows that the second you trade that you are a wee guy. We're going to do. I've always thought that's a weird part about sports because it takes me such a long time to sort of adapt to my new surroundings that the idea of me saying we right off the bat feels just inauthentic. He embraces it. Like he's not even there yet. He hasn't even landed in Chicago. He's already like we. I almost admire it if I didn't think it was so weird.
Yeah, it is a little strange where you're like, it feels like a bunch of guys rolling up to a fight, and he's like leading the way, and you're like, what?
Who
Tristan Thompson? The best version of this to me was Gary Trent Jr. last season. There was the big trade between the Raptors and the Trailblazers. Gary Trent came over from Portland to Toronto, and instantly he starts saying "We the North" in every single interview. I was like, you've been there for like 20 minutes, but he's also like, he's like a free agent coming into the season. So like saying "We the North" a bunch of times is a great way to ingratiate yourself to the fans. They're like, we can't let this guy go. He's part of the North here.
It's a good company, man. It's like, I admire it. I don't have that skill and I never have. And I kind of wish I did. The wedgie count, for those who may not be familiar, which who are you? What's the wedgie count?
Okay, so the wedgie is the no dunks contribution to the basketball lexicon. It's kind of like the opposite of a swish. A swish hits only the net. A wedgie hits only the rim and the backboard and gets stuck there. We've been tracking them now for, 5 or 6 seasons. We're always trying to get to 50 wedgies. That's how we know we've had a successful season. It's happened twice. We're at 30 wedgies right now, but we had some exciting news recently. People have been tweeting us clips from a German game show where they asked, what is a wedgie? Like that was the actual question on this German trivia show. What is a wedgie? A behind the back pass, something else, or whatever an actual wedgie is. And the question master actually mentioned there are about 50 in a season. So we're feeling pretty good that wedgies have made it all the way around to German quiz shows.
Okay, that is actually awesome. Because the word wedgie is a real thing also. And the fact that that's not what I'm so impressed right now. That is, whose job is it to keep track of that, by the way? I always am amazed by who keeps track of what stats. This one's very specific. Who's doing this?
Well, this one started out just us tracking it, and we would always mention it on the shows when we were doing the starters. But since we kept mentioning it so many times and trying to keep track of all of them, now it's become everybody on the internet, it feels like. As soon as there's a ball stuck in a rim somewhere, doesn't matter the game, doesn't matter the country. We saw a Filipino wedgie as well last night. We've seen one from the Netherlands. Anytime it happens, anywhere on earth, somebody's sending us a video of it.
And they always get ovation. Like, that's what cracks me up about when it happens in a game. For some reason, as fans, we like it. I don't know what happens where we think we're cheering that the ball's stuck. Why do we do that? No idea.
It just feels like time stops for just a second because everybody's jostling, everybody's banging bodies. But then they look up and they're like, oh, okay, I guess we're taking a break. Sometimes they let it breathe. We always are big proponents of keep it up there as long as you possibly can. Okay. But there's a lot of tall guys around in the NBA, so they get it down pretty quickly.
They like to jump. The jumping is what does it. Other than that, favorite basketball stat, what do you have? Or do you have?
I love a screen assist. I think screen assists are hilarious. I love a potential assist, which is just a pass to a guy who completely misses a shot.
Oh, that's nice.
But for me, Michelle, number one has got to be field goals because it's all about getting buckets, of course.
Obviously, that's the only way you get paid. You are a WWE fan. Now, are you a WWE fan steady and always, or do you take breaks? Like, I take breaks. And I'll go for years. Okay, so where are you right now in your fandom?
Well, I just watched a clip that Stone Cold Steve Austin is apparently coming to WrestleMania 38, so I'm a WWE fan right now. I couldn't believe it. He said, I've got one can of whoop ass left. He's been saving it for 19 years. I hope it hasn't spoiled in the meantime. But that's the thing for me is like once the Royal Rumble comes around, that's when I really get tuned in. On the road to WrestleMania, you know.
Yes.
These are the big, like the tennis majors. These are the tennis majors of the WWE. So that's kind of when I first, I hop in, I'll watch until WrestleMania, see all of those arcs play out, and then maybe back in for SummerSlam.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I'll randomly tune into like a Monday night just if I'm at home, but it's the WrestleMania because I feel like WWE, like the rest of the world, has really captured and embraced this idea of nostalgia. And I remember the couple WrestleManias I went to, I was excited for the, the contemporary people that were doing what they were doing. But my loudest and happiest and most hysterical moments were inevitably like when Sting came out or when, all those guys came, like they came out one time and I'm just like losing my mind like I'm 11 in. WWE does a good job of keeping everybody sort of in the family, even when they break up for a while. And then somehow we get them back, at least for little pieces. And I think it's perfect.
Yeah, and that's why to me, I mean, the Stone Cold announcement, apparently it's been rumored for weeks that was going to be the case, but seeing it come through, that's really cool. And that's why the Royal Rumble is so much fun to watch because you get, 20 names announced, and then, there's going to be 10 run-ins of just random people that you used to watch 20 years ago. That'd be awesome if they could do that in the NBA, just like bring back a role player every once in a while. We're like, all right, the Bulls have lost 5 straight games. Now you get Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen's playing on the wing for 20 minutes. Let's see what he can do.
I would pay so much. During COVID, when like sort of you needed bodies for a while there, I was like, oh, this could be a really cool moment for the NBA to embrace some of the older guys. But they didn't. They went the other way, which I thought was kind of a missed opportunity, to be honest with you. I would have paid a lot of money to watch some of the old dudes just come running in.
Yeah, my greatest idea for saving All-Star Weekend this year was the top 75 anniversary. So we had, the top 76
plus
players
James
in NBA
Harden.
History. Yeah, he was number 76. I saw the votes. But they had all of these great legends of the game there. They're out there on the court. Let's see who can still dunk,
Yes.
Can Dr. J still dunk at 63 years old? Can Michael Jordan, some of the big guys, like they're 7 feet. You think they can probably still throw it down, but I don't know. People start moving differently when you get up in age. I thought it would have been a really cool way to kind of tie in a bunch of eras together and to see some things we'd never seen before.
That would have stolen any of the show, all of the show and any of the show. It would have even stolen from DJ Khaled, who really was the star of the weekend, according to him. So I feel like next time we have that kind of opportunity, which I guess won't be for like another 25 years or so.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do that. I wonder about Shaq, because Shaq is obviously very agile, very active, very alive. But I don't know. Jumping is still a thing. How's the body feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I'm not mistaken, his career ended with the Celtics because of like a calf injury. So he went out with like a leg injury. He's obviously a big, tall, old guy now. I know for a while they would have him like try and dunk on NBA TV. And he thought he was going to be able to do it. And he went up to dunk and he just like hit the back rim, was like, what? What? I can't dunk right now. So I think he probably since that moment has like been getting back to it. So he's like, Shaq has to be able to dunk. We'll see a clip of Dr. J. I think his story is that like every year on his birthday, he makes sure he can still dunk. So when he turned 60 a few years ago, they had like a beautiful slow-mo version. And you're like, Dr. J, you're 60 years old and you look like you're 30 throwing down no problem. I would like to see that for every player, to be quite honest.
Honestly, I think that's one of the best ideas I've heard, and I am sad that we missed it. This wouldn't be a sports anything, although who are we kidding? Is it really a sports broadcast? I don't know. But podcast. Football dominated this week. They had the audacity and the rudeness, quite frankly, to do it on International Women's Day, of course. But Aaron Rodgers did what everyone thought he would do. But the big thing was Russell Wilson. How many points are you giving to Russell Wilson to actually stealing the spotlight from Aaron Rodgers? Same day news.
Yeah, a lot of big quarterback news out there. A fun thing about me, I don't know if this is fun. I married into a Packers family. I'm a big Bears fan. I married into a Packers family. Our first daughter was born in October, and I think the Bears and Packers played like that next month or something like that in November. So we're like, all right, it all comes down to this. She's a month old. Whoever wins this game, that's who she's going to be a fan of for the rest of her life. Of course the Packers won, so I've been having to watch Aaron Rodgers destroy the Chicago Bears for 20 years, it seems like at this point. The only, the only benefit I could have is that at one point he lied about being vaccinated in COVID. So at least I can always bring that up against
That's
my
shady.
wife. But like to see this guy re-sign and continue to torture the Chicago Bears for years and years while being the most highest paid player in NBA history, I was very sad and not surprised to see that come through. But then, to see Russell Wilson traded and then to see what he was traded for. I know it's different in the NFL, but it's very weird to see Russell Wilson, like a big name, a successful player, a still good player, and he's traded for like a tight end and 1 million draft picks.
Yeah,
that's wild. At least in the NBA, it's like you kind of got to match the salaries with regards to big contracts. So they'll throw in like a guy who's overpaid at this point, along with the draft picks. So I was like, Noah Fant.
Yeah,
I don't even know who that is.
I don't know who that is at all. Well, and the thing is too, I kind of like, if you don't want to be somewhere and the team and the players sort of agree, it's like it's a real relationship. Like, look, this isn't working. Let's just get the best that we can do as we both leave. I don't know if that works that way. I just thought it was crazy that on a day, not even just a day, a season, a year in which Aaron Rodgers has sort of monopolized a lot of the news cycle, to see little Russell Wilson just come on through at the end of the day there. And I was like, oh, well, that's different. You know what? As a Bears fan, I wanted to ask, yeah, Aaron Rodgers beats the Bears. Yeah, he's now the highest paid player. But at the end of the day, he's not Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady goes and wins championships and that's his job and he does it like that. He hasn't done that. So do you take any solace or do you do any smack talk in the regards of, Aaron Rodgers can win during the regular season, but what else has he done? Do you do that at all or does it count?
I don't do that because I still see him beating the Bears. And that to me is like number one, like, we can talk trash about the fact that he never wins the Super Bowl, but he's still beating the Bears. That being said, anytime I send a tweet about Aaron Rodgers, like I tweeted yesterday, oh man, looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to be beating the Bears for the rest of all time. But then all the Bears fans will slide into my mentions and say, yeah, but he's only got as many conference championship wins as Rex Grossman. So that's like an instant like for me. I won't say it, but I will definitely like it. I might retweet. I might even quote tweet it. But I love to see that kind of, the sideways trash talk. Like, yeah, he's better than us, but he's not the best.
Honestly, you have to find some ground to feel better about yourself. Thursday night. So the story is, and I won't believe it until I see it, although everyone says it's going to happen. Steve Nash says it's going to happen. Ben Simmons will be on the bench in Philadelphia as a member of the Brooklyn Nets. Your thoughts initially when you heard that this was the strategy?
I guess I'm a little surprised, but it's a little bit like getting in some practice booze for Ben Simmons. If he were playing, it kind of feels like he would be booed every time he touches the ball, obviously.
Easily.
But that's kind of the way booing goes in basketball. Like Goran Dragic just played a game against the Toronto Raptors. It was the first time they had fans in their stadium for quite some time. The way his tenure with the Raptors didn't end well, didn't sit well with Toronto fans, and they were just merciless. Every time he touched the ball, we're booing him, but then he would pass it, and it's like, okay, whoever's doing whatever. No big deal. But with this, Ben Simmons is just going to be sitting there for the entire 48 minutes. With Philadelphia, they're going to be all over him. But at least he's facing the music a little, I guess. I think that's better than just completely skipping out on the game, at least making an appearance, showing face, and getting screamed at for 2.5 hours.
I mean, and at least you're sitting there, you're surrounded by your teammates. The seats around the bench must be, I would imagine, going for top dollar at this point. You've got some very well-seasoned, very experienced smack talkers in that city. So I feel like whatever seats are around the Brooklyn bench for Thursday night, I'd pay for it because I'd want to talk smack the whole time. He's going to be all right. That, speaking of people who get booed and are quite used to it, and I would say embrace it, Kyrie Irving. Now, if these rules change, which it looks like the country's heading in that direction, if the rules change in the state of New York, as far as Kyrie Irving is concerned, do you think that all of the time off in the long run, as we head into the playoffs and whatever run it is they're trying to make, will this prove beneficial as if he's been sort of, I don't know, if they've been load management, or do you think the lack of long-term chemistry during the season is going to end up biting them in the butts?
It's tough to say. On one hand, I definitely see the argument that the Nets are going to be like one of the fresher teams when they come into playoff time, because I'm with you. It kind of feels like Kyrie is going to be a full-time competitor by the time we get to playoffs. He says the mayor is on his side. It sounded to me like Adam Silver was kind of on his side when he was talking to CNN a couple of weeks ago. So I would not be surprised to see him play. And as we saw in that game against the Hornets, like he can come off of a 2-week layoff and hang 50 on basically any team out there. And it's the same for Kevin Durant, who also just missed a huge chunk of time with an injury. So he's coming back with decently fresh legs. That Hornets game was only Kyrie's 17th game of the season, so he's so fresh. Weird. And Ben Simmons obviously hasn't taken the court yet. He hasn't played since July, so he should be fresh as well. Of course, they're going to have a pretty tough path coming from likely the play-in tournament. But that's the thing to me, is that the Nets aren't a team that's built with a system in mind. They're built to be able to just roll out the balls and have the most talent on the court. And even if it's just Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, that's enough to beat a lot of teams. It was one-legged James Harden out there with Kevin Durant last year, and he went 7 games toe-to-toe, literally, with the Milwaukee Bucks. They were that close. Those guys are just so good that they are a much scarier play-in team to me than the Lakers are as a play-in team, just because they have role guys who know how to play alongside the shooters in Durant and Kyrie, and then maybe they'll get a little something from Ben Simmons defensively. So yeah, maybe that's why Ben Simmons is taking these practice moves. There's a good chance that the Nets and the Sixers meet up in a playoff series in the second round. You don't want your first time back in front of those fans to be in the playoffs. They're going to be brutal anyways. So yeah, get your practice moves in.
If you could be a fly on the wall in the NBA league offices and even some of the networks at this point, if the Nets pull this off, maybe not win the whole thing, but go really, really far, this basically proves that the regular season it's a waste of time. Like, that's what it looks like to a lot of people. It looks like that to fans. Maybe people don't want to spend their money anymore. They just want to wait for the postseason. Like, how bad of a look would it be if the Nets were to figure it out and go pretty far?
Honestly, if it's the Nets, I think it's pretty bad, because the Nets the way they dropped in the play-in tournament is a lot different than the way the Lakers did it. The Lakers just kept getting banged up, like LeBron missed a big chunk of time. Davis was out twice. And then obviously the Westbrook fit hasn't been good. But in general, those have been, accidental reasons of being a bad team. Whereas with the Sixers, it's like Kyrie didn't want to get the shot, so he's only able to play in not even half of their games. Ben Simmons hasn't been around. James Harden didn't want to be there for the last month he was there. So it was kind of on the Nets that they got so bad. Obviously, the KD injury is a little bit different, but they did not make the regular season a priority to them at all. And I think even the way Steve Nash has been coaching has been kind of experimental the entire season. Like, some guys will be in the rotation for 2 weeks, and then you don't see Bruce Brown again for 2 weeks. But eventually, they're all gonna have to play. But they've kind of treated the regular season as a chance to figure out what's gonna work and just get by until it's actually playoff time. So I mean, it will be very strange if they make it deep into the conference finals, if they go to the finals. That is a strange look for the league. It really, I root for chaos, obviously, but it will be interesting if it does in fact happen. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're playing the game that is not sweeping the nation. We've only played it twice. It's called The Truth or the False. And we'll be right back. It's March, which means basketball is in full swing. And for many of us, there's no better way to enjoy those games than by having some skin in them, which is why BetMGM remains the exclusive betting partner of The Athletic. As a fan of The Athletic, you can bet $10 to win $150, plus a free 3-month subscription or extension to your subscription with The Athletic when you bet with BetMGM using our promo code. Just sign up at BetMGM.com, use the promo code TheAthleticPod at checkout, and take advantage of this special offer from the king of sportsbooks. That's bet $10 to win $150 plus 3 months free from The Athletic at BetMGM.com and using the promo code TheAthleticPod at checkout. New customer offer. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions.
21 years of age or older to wager. Arizona, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Washington, D.C., Nevada, Wyoming, and Virginia, 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-GAMBLER in Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Call or text the Tennessee Red Line 800-889-9789 in Tennessee or call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana.
Relationships take work. A lot of us will drop anything to go help someone we care about. We'll go out of our way to treat other people well, but how often do we give ourselves the same treatment? We might work out, we meditate, maybe read, decompress, and they are all ways to invest in yourself. Well, this month, BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to take care of your most important relationship, the one you have with yourself. Whether it's hitting the gym, making time for your haircut, or even trying therapy, you are your greatest asset. So invest the time and effort into yourself like you do for other people. We are all juggling so much. We think we can do it all, but sometimes we need a little outside help, someone to guide us through life's ups and downs. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp Online Therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and What Did I Miss listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/whatdidimiss. That's BETTERHELP.com/whatdidimiss. Welcome back. We are going to play a game named after the great Paul Pierce, old poopy pants himself. It's called The Truth or The False. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to give you some statements. You go with it, Trey. Are you ready?
Yeah.
First up, and these are very serious too. Jokic, lock for MVP, the truth or the false?
That's got to be the false right now. He can't be a lock just because the race is too close. I think that he's a lock, the truth, to finish in the top 3 because right now it's either going to be Jokic, Giannis, or Embiid. It's kind of hard to make a pick between the 3 of them right now because we're seeing, Jokic will have a 40-point triple-double one night, so then Joel Embiid the next night will have 40 and 13. And then Jokic sees that and he's like, fine, I guess I got to have a 30-point triple-double. It feels like they're just putting up these incredible MVP-like performances every single night, trying to one-up each other. It's, at the very least, it's the best MVP race we've had since 2016-17, which was when Westbrook won with a triple-double, and he was followed up by James Harden, putting up crazy offensive stats, and Kawhi Leonard doing it on both ends. It reminds me a lot of that season, and it also kind of reminds me of the scoring title race between David Robinson and Shaquille O'Neal way back when, 93-94. David Robinson, 71 points on the last day of the season. It feels like we're going to have a massive game from one of these guys during the last couple of weeks that really, settles things, and I think we've even got Jokic versus Embiid next Monday. I know that Jokic hasn't played against Embiid head-to-head since 2019, just with injuries and then both missing time at various points. But those two are at the top of their game right now in very similar situations as well. With Jokic missing Michael Porter Jr. for the majority of the season, Jamal Murray's been out the entire year, whereas Embiid hasn't had Simmons alongside him and just now is getting James Harden. They've both been carrying their teams. They're both at their peak right now, playing better than they've played at all this season, which is crazy to think since they've had such good seasons, and now they're actually going to meet head-to-head. That is a must-watch game.
I like the idea in my mind of that they keep track of each other daily. I like the idea that I've also set up that the Jokic brothers are constantly feeding him Embiid's stats and are pregame, this is what you have to do. I just, for some reason because always athletes always play kind of too cool for school. I'm not really paying attention to anyone else. It's, we just got to get the team. But in my mind, they're seeing it and they're doing it every night. And it makes it so much more entertaining for me. It's so fun to watch. I wouldn't be
surprised if you're right. I think Jokic would need somebody feeding him the information. His brothers seem to be the likely sources. Embiid, though, he's searching it out. He's like, all right, let's see what Jokic did. I guess I need to be that much better the very next day. This has been super fun to watch. These two big guys just doing everything for their respective teams. It's perfect.
All right, so James Harden has always been good. He just needed Joel Embiid to help him. The truth or the false?
The truth. That's a tough one to say. Joel Embiid right now, obviously the best player that James Harden has ever played alongside of.
Better than Kevin Durant?
Yeah, that was early in their careers, though. That was so
okay, so you're giving it the timing. Okay.
Yeah. I guess that's a good point. He had it pretty nice when he was with the Oklahoma City Thunder, too. Yeah. He was coming off the bench as the 6th man of the year. That's still weird to see when you look at James Harden's basketball reference page. He won a 6th man of the year. Why was he ever coming off the bench? But he was. I don't know. He was really good with Chris Paul as well. The very first season,
He's
the
had
Rockets
stars.
won 67 games. Nobody thought it was going to work. It worked perfectly for 1 year. Chris Paul got dinged up at the end. The Warriors won, and it was all over. The thing now is that it feels like Harden is settling in a little bit to being the number 2 guy to Embiid, which I think that is different than we've seen in the past. He was always the number 1 guy in Houston. He was kind of the number 1 guy sometimes with the Nets just because they had so many players in and out of the lineup where he would have the opportunity. But now he just has to be the best James Harden he can be, which is hitting open shots and getting easy shots for Joel Embiid. So it looks good right now, but it's also hard to say anything with regards to Embiid and Harden in the playoffs because we need to see you go far. Like, we've seen incredible regular seasons from Harden time and time again. Then he'll have an awesome game 1 in the playoffs, and then after that, it's just a slow, steady decline until the end of the series. So maybe the fact that they both have somebody to take the load off them saves their legs a little bit. Like, Joel Embiid doesn't have to post up every single time he comes down the court now. He doesn't have to bring the ball up the court. He just gets alley-oops now. He gets drop-offs in the middle of the lane. So this month and a half of them getting to play together, I think, saves both of their bodies, and they get to build chemistry. They look like a scary team out there, but I want to see what you do when it gets really intense.
So that was my thing. Like, I have no long-term confidence in James Harden, and it's based completely and 1,000% on history, which makes it valid. But I do think what's going to help them is the timing of this transaction. Like, the fact that he got there when he got there, this honeymoon only has to last a couple more months. Like, that's it. If they want to hate each other after that, that's fine. But you're getting James Harden in his best honeymoon light. It doesn't get better than that. It only goes downhill from here. And so for me, I'm just sort of curious to see if they can cash in on what is the best moment. Because I don't know what happens next season. Like, none of us do. It's James Harden. Like, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually a great point because when the trade happened, at first I was thinking, this is a lot for the 76ers to have to figure out in a month before they're going into the playoffs, playing against a lot of really good teams in the Eastern Conference. Then they came out. They looked incredible. And like you're saying, I was like, wait, actually, this is when James Harden plays his hardest and he plays the most team-style basketball he ever does is right after the trade. It was like mirror images or the exact same thing as when he was traded to the Nets and everybody's like, oh, this guy looks great. How could we possibly forget what a great passer and basketball player James Harden is? So yeah, the honeymoon period is real. Ride the hot hand timing right now.
It's good timing. LeBron is having his best year ever. The truth or the false?
The false. I got to go the false. I mean, he's having a great season, and it is honestly incredible that LeBron is able to still play the way he does at age 37, but the Lakers are far below 500 right now. They're just lucky that the play-in tournament exists, or they would be out of the playoffs pretty easily right now. But LeBron is doing LeBron things, like a 56-point game. And to see the way he was doing it, to see him hit back-to-back threes, then he comes down. Mike Breen is saying he wants another 3 here. Jeff Van Gundy chimes in. Heat checks rarely work. LeBron knocks down the 3rd one. Well, I guess I was wrong about that one. That was a hilarious moment. But I don't know. To me, when you see the best LeBron teams or the best LeBron seasons, it also pairs with his team being incredible defensively, LeBron himself being defensively. Yeah. And I think we've just kind of, we've seen LeBron be so good for so long now that it's almost shocking to see a clip from like the 2012 Heat, and he's actually able to jump higher and be faster back then. It seems like he hasn't lost a step. He kind of has, but his brain has just gotten several steps in the meantime. So I don't think he's having his best season, but if the Lakers were better, we would be talking about LeBron in the MVP race as well. I think he'll still probably get votes just for how good he's being and how big of a role he plays for the Lakers. He's not a realistic candidate, but if they had another, if they were the 5th seed trying to get into the top 4, he would certainly be in the mix.
It'd be a totally different story, and I would hate it more. All right, quick break. We'll wrap things up in a couple of seconds. Oh, hey there. It's Michelle Beadle. Now, look, Being an adult, it can be a pretty big hassle. You're working all the time. Maybe you've got kids or you've got dogs that take up all of your time. Well, the last thing you want to worry about is going out and buying groceries and then bringing them home in all those bags. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh offers 50 weekly recipes featuring a range of flavors, cuisines, and ingredients, so you'll never get bored. Try something new every week. There's something for everyone, including weekly low-calorie, vegetarian, and family-friendly recipes. By skipping the grocery store and using HelloFresh, you're reducing your food waste by at least 25%. The packaging HelloFresh uses to ship your food is made almost entirely from recyclable and/or already recycled content. So what are you waiting for? Go to HelloFresh.com/Beadle16. Use the code Beadle16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's HelloFresh.com/Beadle16. Use code Beadle16. These are the last 4, the truth or the false. I would say these are more important than anything you've probably done all day. Not at all. First of all, easy one. The Bulls will win the East. Truth or false?
The truth.
Yeah!
That's the truth. I can't pick against them. Sure, I know what you're saying. Aren't they 0-8 against the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference?
Matter. That's just
Hasn't
numbers.
Joel Embiid beat the Chicago Bulls literally every single game that he's played against them? Isn't their only big guy inside Nikola Vucevic? It doesn't matter who their center is. They got DeMar DeRozan outside. They got Zach LaVine outside. Theoretically, they're getting Ball and Caruso back healthy in time for the playoffs. The Bulls' best chance, or the Bulls' ceiling to me right now, being completely honest, conference finals, the way the Hawks did it last year. You get the right matchups. You get fortunate injuries. You know, they kind of benefited from Ben Simmons not wanting to shoot in the fourth quarter and the 76ers just in general having a meltdown. Things lined up perfectly for them last season to make a run to the conference finals. It was really fun. That could happen with the Bulls. That to me would be the best possible turnout for them.
I think sports are better when Chicago's good in any sport. I just think it's better for all of us as sports fans. Jackie Moon, I'm sure you witnessed the old Jackie Moon this week, could start for the Lakers right now.
I think that's the truth. He hit a couple of jumpers. Jackie's jumper was looking nice from the baseline. He hit a half-court shot.
Half-court shot.
Lakers need a little scoring on the outside. I mean, sure, their defense has been a problem. Sure, the main problem with their defense is that they have all old guys. Jackie Moon hasn't played a competitive game since the 1970s. Didn't seem to be much of a defender back then. But they've gotten good minutes from Carmelo Anthony, so I would expect the same from Jackie as well.
That, to me, would make the Lakers fun to watch if they would just employ Jackie, like a 10-day. Get him on a 10-day. I would watch every Lakers game until the end of the season, which I would never do otherwise. Please do that. At
the very least, like, they should bring him for warm-ups. It seemed to work for the Warriors, and it kind of seemed like the only reason that Will Ferrell was around the team at all is because Steve Kerr was like, come in and give the everybody love everybody speech. We need some joy around here. Get some smiles on some faces. The Lakers need that as well, so maybe it would work.
Will Ferrell. I love that Will Ferrell's job is just come in and make people happy. All right, cool. I'll do it. That's a good position in life. Yeah. The truth or the false. You have small feet.
I want to say the false. I do. I want to blame people thinking I have small feet on camera tricks, but you got me under the hot lights. It's the truth. I'm 6'5". I've gotten an 11.5 foot. It would be the smallest foot in the NBA if I made it to the NBA. And that's including, I don't know, Earl Boykins. He had a bigger foot than I did. Yeah. That's small.
That's like,
all I got is long legs.
I mean, that is, I have a friend like that. She's very tall with tiny feet. And I always thought, like, how do you balance? So when you have small feet and you see things like the NFL Combine where there's just like seemingly ridiculing a young man for his hand size, do you relate? Do you feel for him?
Oh, 100%. I hate saying my shoe size aloud. Like I hate people knowing that I have an 11.5, and if I'm being honest, an 11 in Chuck Taylor's even more embarrassing. So Who was it that had an 8.5-inch hand? I was like, ooh, that's tough, buddy. Sounds like a small hand.
Well, the funny thing is I didn't have context. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking at my hand going, my hand seems like it's like big like that. But and then I'm thinking, oh, that's small. Oh, that's small. But I guess he's a dude. Okay. You were honest. I appreciate that. Respect. Mad respect. Last, but certainly most important, Guy Fieri should become an NBA team owner or GM.
That's the truth.
Absolutely.
Flavortown Flavors.
My God.
We need an expansion team. There's been rumors that Vegas is in the mix for an expansion team at some point. Guy Fieri has major connections to the Las Vegas scene. At the very
went to college there, right?
That's right. He's a UNLV guy. I forget the name of his restaurant that he's got there. I've been to it.
I watch all the time.
Yeah, what is that called? Anyways, he's got a restaurant in the middle of Las Vegas.
Have you always loved Guy Fieri, or is this like when did this happen?
College and post-college is like, I don't know, really? For whatever reason, the Food Network would have a diners, drive-ins, and dives marathon seemingly every day. They would play 12 hours of Triple D every single day. I watched a lot of them. So, he kind of became, just a fun name to throw around in the mix. He's a fun guy to watch, had funny clips. Then fast forward years and years later, we're at All-Star at the 27 All-Star game. He said something like, oh, just touchdown at All-Star. So I tweeted at him joking around, hey, you want to judge our dunk contest? He said, yeah. So then they came and judged our starters dunk contest. So yeah, I was a fan before then, and now I'm a stan. I'm a Guy stan, big time.
You're a super stan. I feel like the ass because I always mocked Guy Fieri. I was like the group that was like too cool. Like, oh, Guy Fieri. It turns out I was 1,000,000,000% wrong. Like as wrong as I've ever been about anything in my entire life. And I'm with you, except for I'm doing it now in like 2021, 22, where I'm watching, and I call it Diners, Diners, and Diners. It's just easier to remember that way. I watch all of it, Guy's Grocery, all of it. And I have grown to just love this human. I had no idea I was capable of loving Guy Fieri. But here we are. What a world. Seems like a good dude.
He seems like a good dude, and you got to give him props because he's eaten at so many of these diners, drive-ins, and dives. And I'm with you. It's hard to, I'm saying it, but I'm not sure if I'm saying it the right way, the right order.
No, go with me on this one. We're going to change it for everybody.
Yeah, diners, diners, and diners. He's been at all of them. And he never gives a bad review.
Ever.
There's got to be some bad food he's eating, but he always is shoveling it down and enjoying it unless you throw an egg on there. For whatever reason, the guy hates eggs.
Yeah, he's not a big egg fan.
Yeah, don't give him an egg.
But you can tell, we could do a whole podcast on Guy Fieri. You can tell by his facial expressions when he's genuinely like, yep, this is the one. And that's when now I know. I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat at that place if I ever get to wherever the hell that place is. God bless him. I'm so happy we share that in common. All right, No Dunks podcast. Tell everybody the same stuff we're always supposed to tell them. Where do you find it?
Oh, you can find the No Dunks podcast anywhere and everywhere. Where are we? We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on all of the various Stitchers and Podbeans. You can find us on YouTube, or you can subscribe on the Athletic app to get it without ads. How about that one?
I like that. Trey Kirby, I want to thank you so much. If I don't say my part of the podcast plug, I also get in trouble. So I will, reminder, voicemails, text, we have a phone number. It's very easy to remember. It's 631-397-0403. Very easy. Just a bunch of numbers that make no sense whatsoever. Memorize it. We also have a YouTube channel now. So like he said, go subscribe, go do all that stuff. No Dunks podcast. Guy Fieri's #1. We want him to be our Oprah Winfrey. Adopt us, Guy Fieri. We'll see you guys next week.